Okay, so predicting Jacksonville Jaguars record. So they didn't do much during the offseason. There wasn't the biggest offseason move with Calvin really coming back from injury and just nothing much for the Jaguars. Their offense should still be electric. They have a great running game, great trio of wide receivers. I am slightly worried about their offensive line though, so that could be a concerning, especially with their Robinson being suspended. Their defense, their pass rush looks good, but their overall secondary does not. I wish they did more on their defense. But overall, their team looks solid, especially with year two under Doug Peterson. So I expect them to do well. So your first game versus the Colts. Colts are it is a divisional rival game, so you never know what the Colts might do. Jonathan Taylor might go crazy, but overall, Colts should be starting Anthony Richardson, who's an inexperienced guy, very inexperienced, and I don't think he'll do well. And the Colts, their team does have some talent, but not enough, so I'm gonna take the Jaguars. Then you have the Chiefs, very, very explosive offense, especially with Mahomes and Kelsey. I do not think the Jaguars can stop can stop the Chiefs offense. This is a revenge game for the Jaguars. Um, Chiefs defense is not great, but it can cause problems for Jaguars offense. But I think Trevor Lawrence will get his revenge, especially with home field advantage. So I'm taking the Jaguars here. Then you have them versus the Texans. Texans, even though they did improve a little bit, signing a bunch of free agents there and getting CJ Stroud, they're just not good enough to compete yet. So um I'm gonna take the Jaguars. And then you have them versus the Falcons. Falcons run heavy philosophy can definitely give them an upset win if they play their cards right. But Falcons defense, I don't think they did enough. I think Jaguars offense is going to be a lot better than that Falcons defense. And Falcons offense passing game is just not good enough. I'm gonna take the Jaguars again. And then you have them versus the Bills. Bills another two. I think Bills' offense is just way too explosive for that Jaguars defense to handle, and the Bills' defense can definitely slow down the Jaguars. And Bills have home field advantage, so I'm taking them. And then you have them versus the Colts. Like I said, divisional game it is tough. Colts are most likely starting Anthony Richardson, but Colts do have some talent. And I think they're gonna split. So I'm gonna take the Colts. I'm take the upside. I'm gonna take the Colts. And then you have the Thursday nighter against the Saints. Saints talent wise is not their offense is not as good as the Jaguars. Their wide receivers, their running backs are kind of lacking. But the Saints do have it's a Thursday nighter, so it's a short week, and the Saints do have home field advantage with a very good defense. So I'm gonna take the Saints here. And then you have your mini bye, and then you have the Steelers. Steelers, another team with a very tough defense. I think Steelers improved their offense a lot, and but good enough to compete with the Jaguars. And I think Jaguars do struggle against Pittsburgh, especially Pittsburgh having home field advantage. So I'm gonna take the Steelers up to the end. And you have them versus the Niners. Niners, they're both coming off byes. Jaguars do have a big home field advantage. Niners really talented of a team. Um, Niners, their defense is absolutely stacked. The Jaguars will struggle versus the Niners defense, but Niners offense, I think Jaguars can get the win against the Niners offense, which might not be the best, which is still good, but there's skill position players, but their quarterbacks, I think the Jaguars get the win here. Then you have the Titans. Titans, their defense, I think can still be good, but the Titans are Henry or bust, and I don't see Henry going off, so I'm gonna take the Jaguars. And you have the Texans. I had the Jaguars winning the first game, but for some reason the Texans and Jaguars always split, so I'm gonna take the Texans. Um, then you have the Bengals. Bengals are good. Bengals, their wide receivers are really explosive. Their running game, I think, leaves a lot to be desired. I think the Bengals defense can definitely cause problems for that Jaguars offense, but it is a Monday night, and the Jaguars do have home field advantage, so I'm taking the Jags. And then you have the Browns, another team with a very strong run game. Deshaun Watson, if he can shake off that rust, can definitely be good. Um, I, I do think the Jaguars defense can do enough on Watson. The Browns defense is not that good, so I'm gonna take the Jaguars here. And then you have them versus the Ravens. I think the Ravens defense will be too much for that Jaguars offense. I think the Ravens defense is going to dominate, and the Ravens offense should do well against the not great Jaguars defense. So I'm taking the Ravens here. No. Then you have Denver versus the Bucks. Bucks are pretty much rebuilding your potential upset. Bucks do have a lot of their talent, but the Jaguars with Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley should be enough to handle that Buccaneers defense. And I think the Jaguars pass rush with Walker will be enough to rattle Baker Mayfield. So I'm taking the Jaguars. And then you have Panthers. Oh, this one. I think this one's gonna be an underrated game. Bryce Young, he may do good against a weaker Jaguar secondary, but I think Trevor Lawrence and their wide receivers will be too much for that Panthers young defense to handle. So I'm taking the Jaguars. And you have your final game versus the Titans. This is final game. I don't think this one means much for the Jaguars. Who already have this division secured. And either way, I think Derrick Henry's got to go off for one last time. So I'm gonna take the Titans here, upsetting the Jags. Oops. So in the end, I have the Jaguars going 10-7, 3-3 in the division, 7-2 at home, and 3-5 away.